I recognize the senator from Maryland.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think we can and certainly should all agree that the case of Jeffrey Epstein is deeply disturbing, with horrifying abuse of young women and girls. From the lenient plea deal he received in Florida in 2008 to the end of his case with the death in prison, survivors of his abuse have been denied the full accounting of his crimes and the justice that they deserve. It's also clear that a lack of transparency and accountability and contradictory statements by the Trump administration and its officials has led to even deeper public distrust of our justice system and especially the handling of this case. After all, Trump administration officials, including Attorney General Bondi, promised transparency in this case, but instead gave the American people a binder of largely already public documents. It was a sham. Last month, the Department of Justice released a 2-page memo informing the American public that the department had completed its exhaustive review of the Epstein files and concluded that, quote, no further disclosure would be appropriate or warranted, unquote. We shouldn't be taking the word of any official in any administration on face value. The public should see these documents for themselves. And people ranging from the victims to the American public believe transparency is warranted, and it is. Just 3 days after the Department of Justice memo was published, the Senate Appropriations Committee unanimously agreed to an amendment I proposed to the Commerce, Justice, Science, and Related Agencies Appropriation Bill that would require 2 things. It would require the department to retain, preserve, and compile the Epstein files and submit a report with the files to the respective subcommittee of the Appropriations Committee. I understood that earlier today, Senator Barrasso made the point that that Commerce, Justice, Science bill, Appropriations bill, was on the floor, and that I objected to moving forward with that bill, as I did for totally unrelated reasons. We also know that appropriation bills take a very long time to wind through the United States process, congressional process. Got to go through the House. It could be months before that provision, if it continues to be in there, sees the light of day. It shouldn't take months. We should do it now, which is why the day after the Senate Appropriations Committee unanimously, Republicans and Democrats together, supported that provision to require the report and to preserve the documents, Senator Durbin and I wrote to the Attorney General and said, why wait? And that's the question, Mr. President. Why wait? The victims, the American people, they deserve to see the files and know the full truth, and they deserve it right now. Just this morning, there was a new report in Bloomberg. The headline says, the FBI redacted Trump's name in the Epstein files. We've always understood that Donald Trump's name was in the files. What we're learning today, at least according to these reports, is that the FBI redacted Donald Trump's name from those files. The question is, why? Nobody's name should be redacted from the files with respect to the perpetrators of these crimes. Clearly, in releasing files, we need to protect the names of any victims, but the perpetrators, we should know about their names. They should not be redacted. What we've seen, of course, from the president is an effort to change the subject entirely. Say that it was the Obama administration that somehow invented this whole dispute and debate. Well, we know that's not true. We know that's not true because of what President Trump has previously said and, of course, what his Attorney General has said. It's also deeply concerning that the Deputy Attorney General of the United States of America, who previously was Donald Trump's personal lawyer, skirted all the Department of Justice protocols and went down to secretly interview Ghislaine Maxwell for hours over a couple days. I think we should have the transcript of that interview as well. We've also heard President Trump say that he has the power to pardon Ghislaine Maxwell. Well, it's one thing to have the power, it's another thing to speculate publicly about using that power to pardon somebody who could testify in an incriminating way against all of the perpetrators. That reeks of a hint of the obstruction of justice to signal to Ghislaine Maxwell that if she says the right things, the President of the United States could pardon her. That would be a corruption of the judicial process, a gross corruption of the judicial process. So I hope President Trump will immediately announce that he won't pardon this person, Ghislaine Maxwell, who was the associate of Jeffrey Epstein in perpetrating these crimes against young women and girls. The President of the United States should announce today that he will not do that. That's the way the President can put an end to the understandable concern that he is signaling that if she says the right thing regarding him, that she'll get a get out of jail free card. That would be a gross corruption of the process and of the justice system. So this is why we should do now what the victims deserve and what the American public demands, which is to support the proposal put forward by the Senator of Oregon, Senator Merkley. And so, as if in legislative session and notwithstanding Rule 22, I ask unanimous consent that the Committee on Judiciary be discharged and the Senate proceed to the immediate consideration of S-2557. Further, that the bill be considered read a third time and passed, and the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table.
Is there an objection?
Mr. President,
Senator from Wyoming.
I object.
Objection noted. So, Senator from Oregon.
Would my colleague from Maryland give her question?
I would.
So did I understand you to say that the President of the United States has put forward the possibility of a favor to someone who could testify about the Epstein's conduct over many years?
The President of the United States, when asked if he could pardon Ghislaine Maxwell, said, yes, he has the power to do that pardon, to make that pardon. And her attorneys have made very clear through multiple public remarks that they would welcome that. And of course her attorneys would welcome that. She would love to get out of jail free. And so this is why the President today should make very clear that he will not pardon Ghislaine Maxwell because she was close associate in the crimes that she and Jeffrey Epstein committed.
In any ordinary world, wouldn't this be considered witness tampering?
Certainly if the President of the United States is signaling to Ghislaine Maxwell and her attorneys that he would provide a pardon without any possible reason to do so other than for her to give testimony. In this case, it would be false testimony because we know about the close association between Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein, that would clearly be witness tampering.
And to my colleague from Maryland, did you also mention that the FBI redacted President Trump's name from certain documents?
I did indeed, and this is a report that just came out. The headline is "The FBI Redacted Trump's Name in the Epstein Files." It's a Bloomberg report, and it's just one more example of what appears to be an effort to cover up any role that Donald Trump may have played in these crimes. Again, we don't know, and the best way for us all to know is to support your effort here, to support our mutual efforts, which is to just release the files.
So I so much appreciate your amendment, which we advocated for, which you presented very well in the Appropriations Committee, that said all the files have to be retained so that nothing is destroyed. No missing minutes on a White House tape or anything equivalent. Why is it necessary to express this concern?
Well, the concern, of course, is that the Trump administration would be tempted to destroy these files for the purposes of getting rid of evidence. As I indicated, reports today indicate that the FBI, and again, I don't know if they were instructed to do so. I do not know all the circumstances. What we do know are the reports from Bloomberg that Donald Trump's name was stricken from the files.
If that is accurate, I'm just trying to understand why they would do so. If his name is in the files and it's simply in the context of he attended a certain event, something of that nature, or maybe Mr. Epstein went to an event at one of the president's properties, that would be a completely innocent role. Why would the FBI redact such a reference?
Well, I think that's a question for all of us to ask the FBI, and we should follow up and ask the FBI. In the meantime, though, the best way, as you pointed out and all of us have pointed out, and even Attorney General Bondi at one point pointed out, is just release the damn files. That's how we would get to the bottom of all of this. And don't redact anything from the files except to protect victims. But perpetrators should not have their names redacted from the files.
Absolutely. Well, I so appreciate you bringing this additional information to bear. Our colleague across the aisle who objected noted that the Republicans also voted for this amendment, your amendment, in committee. So I'm wondering if we bring it back as a UC, that as a bill to pass right now, saying all information is retained. I wonder if our Republican colleagues would join us in that effort.
Well, that's a very good point the senator raises. We had a unanimous bipartisan vote in the Senate Appropriations Committee on an amendment to do exactly that, to make sure the records were preserved so nobody tries to destroy evidence. And it required an exhaustive report detailing many of the questions that we have all raised regarding the Epstein files. As I said, the appropriations process takes a very long time to wind through the United States Congress, and there's no reason to wait on this. Again, if a majority of the Appropriations Committee, not just a majority, a unanimous vote in the Appropriations Committee took place, we could actually get this out right away, and hopefully the House would pass that, and then we could send it right to the president's desk.
Well, I do hope you'll bring that back as a unanimous consent request later today, based on your amendment to retain all the files. We've already heard our colleagues object to releasing the files, but certainly they should join us in a unanimous way in retaining all the evidence.
We certainly, and more importantly, the American people and especially the victims deserve to know that nobody will tamper with the files between now and the moment they're released. Again, the fastest way to address this issue, to meet the concerns, to terrible, terrible abuse that was visited upon these young women and girls is simply to release the files and do it now.
Mr. President, a point of information, are we going to proceed with a vote at 12 noon?
Time expires at 12:46.
At 12:46? Thank you for that information. And I believe Senator Markey has come to the floor to make some comments. I will just close with this notation. All across America, ordinary men and women know that if they commit a crime, they'll pay the fine. If they commit a crime, they'll do the time. They don't have fancy lawyers. They don't have friends in high places. They don't have the FBI redacting their name from documents. They don't have one caucus of the U.S. Senate blocking information from being released. On behalf of every ordinary citizen across America, we are going to continue to press for the powerful and the rich to be accountable if they, in fact, participated in the abuse of young women, in the rape of young women. We want them brought to justice, no matter what political party or what bank account they have, what part of the country they live in, or what friends they have. Thank you, Mr. President.